Hello, Ashley. Welcome to Sippin' Sunday, the podcast. Let the listeners know what you're sipping or what your favorite drink is.
I'm gonna do a mix of both, if that's
Yes, yes.
okay. I have I have water today, good old Poland Spring, because I need to hydrate. I've been drinking a lot of wine, which is my
Yeah.
favorite type of drink.
Okay.
So I definitely go for like the sweet reds
Me
right
too.
now. So that's my favorite.
Same.
Yeah,
Sweet red.
I yeah
I'm
the
sipping.
the bitter reds are horrible.
Yeah, I don't. Yes, yes. I don't like non-sweet wine unless it's like that very strong border of like it could almost be bitter, but there's a little bit of sweetness into it. Like dry, bitter.
Mm.
I don't like it all. Those are nasty.
Yeah.
I'm sipping decaf coffee because we're recording this in the evening. Out of my sipping Sunday mug. Usually I would say one of my favorite drinks is coffee though. Coffee, tea, water,
Mm.
and wine.
Yeah.
So we're in the same realm.
I think that's like the top three adult like
Yes.
beverage package.
Yes.
I mean, I think we're way past soda at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, ginger ale does not count.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't drink soda at all. Like I have to be out or it has to be like the only option somewhere for me to drink it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm super excited to have you here on Sip and Sunday podcast. I know I've been on your podcast. We'll get into that and you can tell the listeners a little bit about you, how they can find you and all that stuff at the end. So to jump in, the
Mhm.
question that I always ask everybody is at what age do you feel like you became an adult if you reached that age yet?
Definitely not. I mean, I'm a full 30-year-old, but I do not feel like an adult. I feel like I'm still learning, I'm still growing. And that's what we do all the time in life, right? Like, no matter at what age, we could be 70 years old, God willing, and we're still learning some things. Um, when I first like saw this question, I was like, there's certain levels to this, right? This thing. When I think about myself now, I'm very much single. I have no children. I don't have a husband. Like, all I have to do is really worry about myself in this season of my life. And I feel like when you get to those levels of like partnership and having children, or not even just the having children part, but the pregnancy too. Like, that is when you start to unlock those new features and you grow even more. So I feel like, just because, and not to say that these things mean that you're an official adult either, but I think it unlocks a certain type of mindset within you as well. With more responsibility, you have to adapt. You
Yeah.
have to learn, okay, like, what am I going to do in this space now, very differently, or maybe even just like this new environment, this new territory. Like, how am I going to react?
Yeah.
So, by no means, I think I'm at the level that I need to be at. I know there's a new level coming,
Yeah.
I feel it, but yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
And I like that you said that you'll unlock new features of adulting. I might start like using that because I do think that's what it is too. You are always going to be growing and changing. And I feel like leveling up in adulting or like feeling like you're not leveling up in adulting or you're going backwards, it just depends on the circumstances that are going on for you personally at that time.
Yeah, for sure. I like to think about it too, of like, it may sound cliche, but it's very much truth. Like, I am always going to be a child of God. Like, that's
Amen.
who I'm seeking out. That's who I'm looking for toward, is my father. And as long as I'm a child seeking out the kingdom, like, that is what matters to me. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, I'm 30 years old, I know it all. Or even at 50 plus, oh, I know it all. I've had been through all these experiences. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'll be a fool.
Yeah. And I personally never was like, I want to be an adult and skip childhood or anything like that, or like, I can't wait to grow up. I mean, I felt like it was going to unlock like new things of like independence, being able to do stuff on your own. But this is
Mhm.
crazy having to do all these things on your own and being an adult, especially
Yeah.
in this world that we're living in. It's really an interesting time for all that are participating.
Seriously.
And so a little bit of your work, you kind of talked about, not talked about it, but touched on like being a follower of God. And that ties into what you do as a mindset coach and just how you help
Mhm.
other people overcome things and how you have overcome things. That's been like your guiding light for how you navigate challenges. So, how have
Yeah.
you overcome a challenge and in adulthood? And what have you learned from that that you still use today?
Um, so let me give you a little
Yes,
backstory,
yes.
right? So when I was younger, I used to like type up like certain quotes and things, just pick them around, hang them around my room. And so this one, I still have it on my fridge till this day. And at the it kind of lists three things that like that are in life that really either like we focused on or etc. So, but the last part of that the quote is just like three things that constantly change, well, or in constant,
Yep.
sorry, three things that are constant. So it's change, death, and God. And those that I think that breaks it down so much into like the biggest lesson that I had to learn, because I had a big issue in letting things go. And I would just be trying to find every solution, resolution as to like, no, we could patch this
Yep.
up. Like, but you have to know that, things have to change in order to grow. Things have to die in order to have a
Yep.
rebirth. And God is all at the center of that. And for me getting closer to God in that, he made me see and recognize that like everybody can't go with you. Like these environments, your habits, like people, like I the biggest part of my journey has been
Hmm.
people, 'cause I am that type of person that I want everybody to join in. Like if I'm winning, you winning, and vice versa. Like, oh, I've known you since like middle school. Like, come on, like,
Yep. Yep.
why not? But life is just life, and you have to be okay with letting things go. And I think that for me getting closer to God, it helped me understand that like you need to let me lead, Ashley. You need to let me lead. You need let me guide you on your journey. You don't have to have it all figured
Yep.
out like we talked about. We don't have to like panic and just no. Just let me do me. Let me be God and you be
Yep.
you.
Yep.
So I feel like that's the biggest lesson is just like letting things flow, letting him do him, and you know everything needs to die in order to just be renewed.
Yeah, for sure. And I know you're a follower of God. You very much believe in him, but some people don't. So is there any
Mhm.
advice that you would give to somebody that like believes and understands what you're saying, but they're not keeping like God in the middle of it? And maybe I'm not sure if you've worked with any clients or found people like that. Just because sometimes I feel like
Yeah.
when you're talking about God so strongly, people try to stray away, or they're like, oh, like you're all holy, or you're this, or you're
Yeah.
that. And that's really not the case. It's just that you believe in something that you are following to better your
Yeah.
life. And everybody does not have to choose to follow him for sure, but I feel like your life
Mhm.
is a little bit more difficult when you don't, or when you just don't have
Mm.
something that's like grounding you to follow. So, like, what advice do you have for people that don't necessarily follow God, but they want to change their mindset? They want to let something go. They want to like continue moving forward with their life.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great question, great follow-up question actually, because actually I did work with a client that was very much like that, and it's okay because I think everybody they're on part of their journey, and whether they have that moment in time where they do come back to Christ, then congratulations. Like but just to answer your question, I focus so much heavily on the limiting beliefs because I feel like no matter whether you believe in God or not, like we all have that negative
Yeah, for
self-talk. We
sure.
all have those beliefs of ourselves that like tear us down when in reality like we always have to focus on like, well, is this the truth, or is this just the lie that I've been told and now I'm telling it to myself and it's on constant replay
Yep.
now because I'm making it part of me and the labels on me. So I take it from there. And I think the biggest thing is being able to be more self aware and being able to know that, okay, like I may not be the best public speaker, but I'm not going to constantly label myself like I'm horrible at speaking.
Yeah.
No, I'm improving in this area.
Yep.
I will be a great public speaker one day. Just today,
Yep.
maybe that here, and that's okay. But I want people to know that like this recording in our minds, right? Like we have to combat that. We have to start speaking to ourselves more lovingly,
Yes.
having compassion for ourselves because it's hard enough that life be life in and like you got all these people like people be coming at you sometimes and
Yeah.
it makes you feel even more like crap. But you being alone and by yourself, you have to know and like you are. Can I cuss on
Yes,
here?
yes, you can.
Like you are the shit. Okay. Like you need to know that you are the shit. And if nobody else is going to tell you, you know that in your heart. And you have to know that God, again, I'm going to go back to God. I'm
No, you
sorry.
don't be
Not
sorry
sorry.
about it. That's
But
what you believe. You follow it.
yeah, but like he made you to be the beautiful person that you are. So that's how I would really like address that if to
Yeah.
someone who really doesn't really have that strong belief in God because it's a very practical,
Yeah.
tool and tip.
And it's more like mindset, like you said, and then also just like belief in yourself. But to believe in yourself, I feel like you have to find source of inspiration from somewhere else sometimes. Because when
Mhm.
you are talking negatively about yourself, and if that's all you've been doing, or you're falling into those types of habits that you're mentioning, to pull yourself out, you need something else to like help you or spark in you that like, okay, it doesn't always have to be like this, which is very hard. And I think that is a challenge for sure with adults overall, that eventually you just feel like life is really hard or like you're in a negative situation and you're not going to come out of it. But every time when you do, then you're
Mhm.
like, wow, this might have been bad, but like now I'm better.
Yeah, it's really about educating
Yeah.
yourself, right? If you know that you're in a sticky situation and this feels like crap, I don't want to be here. You need to find the tools that you need, whether that's therapy, whether that is a mindset coach, a life coach, someone, right? And knowing that you don't have to do it alone. Like I think we sometimes become so isolated and so secluded that like, well, no one understands and I have to figure it out. No, like and thank God, in 2024 we have tools,
Yeah.
right? I don't know how many times I see BetterHelp come up on
Yep.
YouTube ads and
For sure.
like there's resources out here. And sometimes I know people can be very hesitant on just like talking to a friend because obviously, friends are like too close in proximity
Yeah.
sometimes, but if you have that one solid friend that you like and we have those.
Yep.
We could just speak to and just let it all out. Then, I mean, that's one person
Yeah.
and one tool, so to speak.
Yep.
You know, but I feel like a lot of the times when people when it's the hesitancy of being vulnerable too. I mean, that's like people just don't want to do it, and it takes time.
I think that our generation has been realizing at a higher rate about jobs and losing them and being in horrible situations, and we're not prepared for that. Nobody teaches you how to deal with that until we deal with it. Going back to what you said about like different features
Mhm.
or things in adulting, like nobody is taught how to prepare to lose your job, change your career, be laid off, get fired. You just decide you want to leave your job, and because it's been happening so much more for our generation, that has been something I feel like for sure has helped vulnerability for people like seeking out help and speaking up about certain things.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of my journey, and that's what I'm here to do, to help people as well. Just a little bit of a backstory to, for your audience. I am still a licensed social worker. but I like to say I'm just a licensed social worker turned mindset coach, because I was not happy in that space of the 9 to 5 and the systems, right? Like when you, as a social worker, you could be in the government, you could be in nonprofit, hospital, those type of sectors, but you're always under their submission. Like if it's like you could help people, but you got to do it our way. I didn't like that. I was like, but are we really helping people, or is this just, especially in the hospital, like, is this just for like a money gain? Because I see people like a revolving door. Like, what we doing? So that it drains you. It drains you of your creativity. It just like in your soul knows it's like, hey, this is not working out. We gotta pivot. So it takes a lot of faith. It takes a lot of strength to take that risk and say, hey, like I want to start a business on my own. You already had the skill set. You gained it from your experience. Now you could just implement it in your own space and do it, you know, in on your own terms. And I think that is the beautiful thing about it. It's not easy, but in the work that I do, it's like I guide people through that transition because it's hard. It's like even for me now, like you know, even they say I'm not a therapist, but a therapist needs a therapist. But everybody needs a therapist. You know what I'm saying? Like I need someone to help me with my mindset. I can't do it alone. So it's like for me, if I'm as much as I'm learning. I could also like I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm giving it to people so they could also be able to transition, if not even smoother than me.
Yeah, and for the part you're saying about like just you don't feel creative and people are trying to tell you how to do it in their way that's not working. I feel like that's the biggest part of what our generation
Mhm.
doesn't like about work, that we're not able to do things as we may think we should, and for most of the times it's like the way that just would work
Yeah.
most efficiently or the best. But because it's like, oh well, this is what we've always done, we just keep doing it that way. But people change, and like you being in a helping profession, it's like people are changing, the world is evolving, the needs of people needing help is still the same, but the way that they need it and want to receive it is completely different. So it's like if we're not going to change, it's just going to be the same problems over and over again with the employees, with the people you're helping. Like that
Yeah.
doesn't do
Yeah.
anybody any justice. And so, with that, for your career and just your mindset, coaching, and how you've experienced your own career path, do you feel like a career or job is tied to your
Not all the
purpose?
time. I feel like sometimes it can be. It just happens so seamlessly. And then other times
Yeah.
it's not. I think it's in a different area or aspect of your life. It could be like in your relationships, your hobbies, any other area, right? I think purpose is more on a broader scale. It's a broader concept. And for me
Yep.
personally, I think I've always been on a search for my quote unquote purpose because when I was younger, I was very much like my parents never introduced me to astrology. I was kind of just like I don't know. I don't even remember how I was introduced, but I just knew this was the thing that I needed at the time. And this is
Yeah.
this is way before like astrology became as popping as it is today. Like everybody's out here like I'm a Scorpio with the
Ah,
Sag moon and like no, it's okay. But listen, astrology
it's
and
a
birth
lot.
charts, like I was trying to get to know myself like to the core. It helped.
Hmm.
But I had to shift and be like, okay, like who created me? God. So this is why I go into like having a closer relationship with him and him telling me who I was and showing me, right? Studying who I was created to be. Now on the more practical side, right?
Yeah.
I was also very much not I'm say comparing, but I would take these personality assessments. I'm sure you've taken them. We all the
Yeah.
personality
Yep. Yep. Yep.
assessments, like I've
Yes.
taken the strengths finders assessment, like things like that to
Yeah.
really tap in and understand like okay, who like who is Ashley? What can you do? Like, what are your strong points, weak points? Like, and I always came up to be the advocate, no matter what. And so I just knew,
Okay.
even before that, I just knew that I wanted to help people. I wanted to serve people. I didn't know how. I was like, listen, we could be a lot of things to help people, but what is this? What is the and
Yeah.
I remember going to college freshman year, going in undecided, and I was like, all right, like I know I want to help people, but what else am I interested in? And I've always been interested in the mind and like knowing how people, like what makes people tick, like what they light up, like what makes them light up,
Yeah.
and like all these things. So it was only natural that I kind of slid into psychology, but then like, oh, there's groups of people. I didn't know what sociology was. I was like, okay, cool, let's
Yeah.
do that. S- just threw in social work. It was like the perfect package, girl. Like, and then, in that moment when I think back, I'm like, oh, like even back then, I was still living in my purpose. You know what I'm saying? It all came together to be right here. Like whatever I was studying, and so
Yeah.
for me, I think I'm exactly where I need to be right now. Like I was, it was just set up
Yep.
seamlessly, in my career and what I'm doing now. And I'm just thankful for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so in exploring that of like going to school undecided, then you're learning about what you want to do. You're taking like the different assessments that are showing you qualities that are pretty consistent throughout it. Were there any other things that helped you to like seek your purpose or really like sit back and reflect of like what is it to
Um,
get you to where you are now?
ooh, honestly, I would say, well, it all encompasses self discovery, right? I think it's about cutting out the
Yeah.
distractions. Um, and by that I mean like the type of things you watch on TV, the music you listen to, the people, the
Yeah. It
environments, even
matters.
your habits, right? Because you can't be the person you're meant to be if you don't fall back from the things that are not meant for you. Now, we all get into certain habits that aren't good, but like it's about knowing that and then actually getting out of it. But I don't know if people are willing to take that step because it's hard. You know what I'm saying? You are attached to something and you have to break that stronghold.
Yeah.
But in order to really get into your purpose, you have to do those type of things.
Yeah. And I don't think that like if you're trying to shift something, it doesn't usually happen until a really negative situation or a bad situation or you're like really down in the dumps. Then you're like, okay, I need to do something because this isn't fine anymore or like I need a change. And I think that for platforms like just mine, even yours, when people learn about this earlier, it can help them be more proactive. So I feel like you have a more balanced like emotional response or like just self-talk and thought process around certain things, so that like for example a lot of people I know recently have been getting laid off and stuff, and my past two jobs, like I left the first one on my own, and then the second one like it was a horrible situation and it basically was like I needed to leave or I was going to
Yeah.
be separated like at a later date or whatever. And now going through both of those experiences, I'm like, if a job like let me go, like would it still be like this is crazy? Yes, but I don't think
Yeah.
that I would be as phased by it because I've been through it before. Now I'm like already just like, okay, what do I do at work to make sure that like I am doing everything that I need to do, that I'm like
Mhm.
covering myself, that I'm having clear communication, all that stuff. And even doing that still doesn't mean you wouldn't get laid off, because sometimes getting laid off or having to leave a job isn't always about you and your performance. It's about what's
Mhm.
best for the organization at the end of the day,
Yeah.
because it's a business, it's a corporation. So I feel like if that was to happen again, which the good Lord, I hope it does not, but if it did, I would be way more prepared because I've gone through it. I've talked about it with multiple people, like, and just helping
Yeah.
others go through that experience now as well. I'm just like, it's feels like it's the end of the world, but it's not, because you're going to get a new job, or you're going to start a business, or you're going to move back home, or you're going to do whatever it is that will help you get to like what that
Yeah,
next point
it's
of your
just a
life is
pivot.
supposed to
That's
be.
really all it is. It's that like that constant change, girl. Like you have to, it
Yes.
has to die in order for you to get to that new. And once you see
Yeah.
it, and this is something that I'm learning from when this conversation, and just like I guess other conversations outside of this episode. I tend to be up in the clouds a lot. And when I say that is like I am so rooted in spirituality. I see everything from a spiritual lens. Now, while that is a good thing, it could
Yeah.
also be not so good at times. You know what I'm saying? Like you need that balance of like being grounded. So as you're talking, I'm like, nope, God's gonna give it to you. Like
Yeah.
he's gonna come up. Like, what you mean? But I can't, and that's just me. But I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm talking out loud because that's really what's registering right now. But I love speaking with you because you bring me
Yeah.
back to the groundedness and the practicality of it all. Because like
Yeah.
even just you talking about being laid off, like I've, had experienced that as well. Yeah, nobody prepares you for that. But it's like the practical
No.
thing is,
No.
right? Like we update our resume, we go on the hunt for a job. But then it's like, all right, I'm hit
Yep.
with rejection or no answer, like yeah, right. So it's
Bills still
like
need to be
that's
paid.
where I feel
Like,
like my spiritual lens comes in, my spiritual mindset. I'm like, all right, faith got to kick in.
yeah. And I do agree. Like, also believe in God and like faith as well, because I mean, granted, even the things that have been horrible, I'm still here. Bills have still been paid, like, where some of them late, sure, but like nothing's been taken away. So I agree with you. And one of my other friends, we talked about this a lot, because we would say like, yes, people can have faith, and like Mike Todd
Mhm.
Transformation Church says, like, have crazy faith, and I also agree with that. But I feel like there has to be like a work plan that you're gonna put in for it, for one, and then two, like, I won't say realistic, because you can make anything happen. I think it really
Mhm.
just has to do with the work that you're putting into it. So if you're like, I'm gonna become a millionaire by the end of this year, but you're just sitting at home doing nothing, like
Yeah,
that is kind of like you
right.
have faith, but that's like a little delusional. Like, what are you doing to reach that goal? Or if you're like, I'm gonna get a house by the end of the year, but again, you're not like maybe looking into that or seeing what the process is. Like, things aren't just gonna like
Exactly.
pop up randomly. Like, sometimes they can, but like a house just isn't gonna fly out of nowhere. Like, you have to have some type of planning or structure, and also be ready to receive whatever that thing is. Like, if you are not a steward over what you already
Yes.
have, you're not gonna
That's
get
real talk.
more.
I listen, you have to be in alignment for the assignment. You got to be it's like
Yes.
sometimes the blessings right here, but we be like over here. We like right, we so close. We are so close. So
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah. Yes, for sure. But yeah, I believe people should have faith, but like it has to come with some type of realistic thing. Because I feel like I, on my own, like individually, will like be like what you're saying, of like the dreaming, figuring things out. Like, I'll write out all the ideas, or I'll think about like all the things like I could possibly want. But what I try to do is then go back and be like, okay, like, is this one realistic? And or like, is this one that I actually want to work for or try to get? Because you could say you want something, but if you're not gonna put work in behind
yeah,
it, like, it's
yeah.
not going
It's
to
the
happen,
first
really.
step. The first step is it may be
And
the hardest, but it's necessary because that first step is going to lead to the next other steps to get you where you need to be. Like I imagine, right?
yes.
Like you're a homeowner. So I'm imagining you like as stressful as that is or can be, you Amber had to take the first step. Like how like can I'm gonna ask you this question because I'm
Yeah.
like what
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, it was scary. You had faith that you was gonna get the house, but like, what made you take that first step?
Yeah, and it yes, great questions. And this is how you know when you're talking to another podcaster because you're like, wait, now I have a question. So my house, like I had lived on campus for my jobs up until when I moved to Baltimore. And in 2021, I got my first apartment, like first off-campus apartment, having to pay rent, pay bills myself. Then I had like thought about getting a house or townhouse just because when I moved to Baltimore at the time I was in a relationship, so we were like loosely talking about it, but then like it just didn't, we broke up, didn't work out. I still had my apartment, whatever. But what happened was the landlord, he, I never met him if, as long as I lived there, because it was a house he split into two apartments. He sold it to the people downstairs. They wanted me to stay, the people downstairs. They're like, oh, you're great, whatever. They were like very annoying and like a little weird, but it didn't bother me because I went home, did what I need to do, go out, like whatever. But once they became the owners of the house, they just were like unbearable. Like it was just annoying. So I did start like looking at apartments, but just for the cost, I was like, let me just see what like houses look like or try to figure this out. And what happened was they were like, you can stay, this was like July is when they got the house, and then by the end of August they were like, we want you to leave in like 60 days, after
What?
saying they like wanted me to stay and everything. So that was like a mess. That's what really like lit the fire to look quicker,
Mm,
also just to not deal with their foolishness. So I called up one of my friends who just had bought a house like within a year or two. She referred me to her realtor, and I talked to that lady on Sunday, August 28th. By that Friday, I had a house. And like when I went to view this house, like I came and I was like, okay, like this house is really nice. The area seems cool, but I like was still very nervous. And I was like, I don't think I'm gonna get this house. Like, I don't think I'm gonna get it. And I'm like, if I don't get it, like it's not for me. But then I was like, but if I do get it, this is a huge like decision, like a huge thing happening. So I definitely went back and forth and
mm,
doubted like if it was going to happen. But once I got here, like literally every day now, I've been here for almost a year and a half. I'm like, I'm so grateful for my house
mm,
and it being mine and me being able to create like what I want it to be, like having my office, like just all the space, people being able to come and be comfortable. So the first step was not imposed by me really. It was the
mm.
people telling me that they didn't want me to be there anymore
I'm
and they
sorry.
started acting crazy. Um but then after, no, they were. I'm telling you, like even my friends now, when I just like recently like mentioned like that
Wow.
apartment, they're like, those
Yeah.
people were wild. Like what
Listen,
was going on with them?
anything possible just to get you where you need to be. Like,
No, honestly, and I feel like for the house, like I see why people would not want to get a house. But on the other side, like I just think like it is possible. Again, if you've done the work or the preparation and you understand the
mm,
process and you have people to help you like through it. Because I didn't do it on my own. So like what you were saying before, and then even what me mentioning, like you have to do the work before. Like when I got the house, not that I wasn't like crediting myself for like everything I've done to lead up to this point, but when you think about buying a house, people are like, you have to have like
mm,
so much money saved up. I did not. I actually used my retirement, which is a form of savings though. So like even when I talked to my realtor and the
mm.
leasing or the whatever they're called, the lender, they were like, well, you did do work because for your entire career of working, you were saving money, not thinking like it would be for a house, but like that money was a savings that like you used. So if you weren't working and saving and being
Yeah.
responsible in that way, like you wouldn't have got the house.
I
Um,
felt,
but we're here. I did it because it took me a long time to really be like, not that it's just weird. Like, not that I didn't feel like I bought the house. Obviously, I did. Like, it's just me. Like, I did all that. But that was just a
yeah.
huge thing to really be like, wow,
Listen,
like,
the
this is all
players
because
were
of
in
me.
place. That's all. And I was about to say that should be like I could just picture on the screen like adulting tip. Because like I didn't even know that. I didn't know, well, I didn't think about it that way, honestly,
Yeah.
because honestly, I don't I'm still trying to
Yeah.
grasp the whole differentiation. I butchered that word up. But
Well, yeah, I even remember when I said unbearable, unbearable, I said something wrong. It doesn't matter.
it's
The
just
people know what
the
we're
difference
talking about.
between like IRA and 401k and ugh, gives me a headache But that's why I'm gonna be calling
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I do want to do, and I did put it on my calendar. I just gotta like advertise and put it out there. A thing for just Q&A about buying a house, not giving anybody advice on like
Yeah.
what to do, not to do, just sharing my experience and answering questions that I can answer because I do feel like my process happened so quickly. Like I said, it was August 28th when I talked to that realtor, and by that Friday, I had the house. Like we went to visit it on that
Mm.
Wednesday. I saw like 6 houses in 3 days, put in for this house. And then by that Friday, I knew that I got it. I was in here in September 29th. So that was like 30
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
Like that was quick. I don't recommend
I'm gonna just
that,
say
but
number God, number God.
it happened. We're here.
Yeah.
No, for real, because that was wild. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that yeah, do the work, people. Have a goal, figure it out. And also, like, you don't need to like necessarily tell everybody because I think I've shared this story before that I did feel like in 2020, is that two, that I was gonna get a house, and I had zero idea. But like in March, I just was like, I'm gonna have a house by the end of the year, and I was like, I don't really know what this is about, like why or how, because like at that point, the person who owned the house hadn't sold it yet to the people downstairs. So like I was like, why am I gonna leave here? Like
Yeah.
the rent was $850
Okay.
a month. That is cheap
For
in
real.
this climate.
Right.
So I was like, why am I gonna leave here? Like I'm gonna ride this out until I can't anymore. And
Mhm.
then August came around and I
Right
could
around your
not.
birthday
So
too. Hmm.
here we are.
Yep.
Yes, it was right after, like the
Yeah.
week after. I was like, this
That's a
is
good
a great
strategy
birthday
though,
gift to
because
myself.
that was
So
one of the things that I wanted to touch on too. When you asked me the previous question was like also with identifying your limiting beliefs, goal setting has to be. I mean, that's what we've been talking about for the past couple minutes, but it's really important because if you don't know, it's like your north star, so to speak. Like you have the north star, but then you need the steps, right? Like what is that first step to get to that north star? If you know that you want
yeah,
to um even just attack the limiting belief, right? Of I'm not a great public speaker. What is the steps going to be like or look like to get you to be a great public speaker and the public speaker that you're meant to be, um or even just
yeah,
transitioning into,
yeah,
you want to start that business. What does that look like? you know it's small steps, and that's what I'm
yeah,
learning because there's a saying that, obviously God leads your steps, but it's not the big leaps, right? We're not taking these gigantic leaps anywhere.
yeah.
It's small baby steps, one thing at a time. And I think,
Yeah. And that's what adds up because, like, just using the house example, the retirement of 7, 8 years of working, which I wasn't always contributing a lot
mm,
to, but it still helped me to have the down payment to my house. Am I now having to like rebuild that savings stuff back up?
yeah,
Yes, but that helped with something. Even just with the business, like people have asked, like, okay, it's been 5 years, like, what advice do you have? And I literally just start the business because if you don't start, you're gonna be sitting back like, I wish I did this, I wish I did that. And I also was asked like, what's a
mm,
challenge, or something that has been difficult, and I'm like that I do just like do that I don't always
mm,
take the time to like sit back and plan, which I think for a business as it grows, like you do need to have more of a plan so that you
mm,
could introduce like
yeah,
strategies, other people, all that stuff. So that's what we're working through because we have the goals, but we need to
yeah,
not have too many that we're doing so many things. And then just lastly, this conversation, I mean, we knew it was going to flow as it was supposed to, but it flows into every topic and things that I wanted you to hit. If you could just talk about strategies that you would give somebody,
yeah,
to shift their mindset, if there's any additional or like not tangible things, but if somebody came to you today and was like, okay,
mm.
this is my problem, what do I do?
It's
Like,
really
how
like
would
a
you
lot of what we already
instruct
spoke
them?
about, but I also think it's very personalized, right? It's very customizable. Um, I could
Yeah.
only meet you where you're at, right? Just to refresh for the topic of the conversation. Of course, being self-aware is one, right? We always have to be aware of like what we think, what we're saying, what we're doing. In order to tackle the mindset. I'm looking at like I'm looking at what are your daily habits, because I I'm gonna have to like just name drop
Yep.
this book because Atomic Habits has been the one for me by James. Girl, it's so
Everybody
good.
says
I
that. I
didn't even
need to
finish
read
it
it.
yet, but I'm just like, if anybody out there, please get it. Um, of course, if you're on the more spiritual side, I always going to recommend again having that connection with God, because He is the one that's going to lead you. He's the one that's going to direct your steps in whatever it is that you need to do. I mean, even just Amber talking about her testimony about her house, like, come on, there's that's we just gonna leave it there. um, and then for those that like need,
Yeah.
again, going back to the distractions, I think you get more clarity too when you don't have the distractions around you. You're focused in on yourself. I know for me, like one of the
Hmm.
things that has helped me is getting like investing, right? Investing into courses, investing into, I mean, YouTube is free. There's a lot of great content on YouTube. I'm sorry.
Podcasts are
Oh
free.
yes, podcasts too, like for sure.
I
Like
said podcasts
all
are free.
these resources that like we're pouring into you, just all this free game. And I mean, like for me, the biggest resource that I've been using is the Bible app. I've been like boasting about the Bible app. I mean, I've always had it, but now I'm really like, one of my new habits is really looking on the Bible app daily, and they have a plan for everything.
Yeah.
I be
Yes, I've
mind
done
blown.
some
I'm
of them
like, why
before.
didn't I go here first? Because that is the book of all books. Why, like, but I would say definitely, if not the
Yeah.
Bible, definitely invest in a course, a self-improvement course, personal development course. Those things are always helpful. And you get a new perspective just on different things,
Yeah.
again, because you're always learning. So those are the right.
Yeah. For the Bible app, what helped me to like get back into watching church or like looking at the Bible is like the Bible app having the different versions.
Mm,
And when you put it in the version that you can understand, I can't remember which one that is right now. But when you put it in the version
yeah.
that's like plain English and plain text, I think that helps people because when I like as a kid would see the Bible and be in church, I'll be like, I don't know what these people are saying. But when I realized that like my beliefs even before I really like understood the Bible, and I mean I still don't necessarily know everything. I
Mhm.
cannot read it to you front to back or like cite verses and stuff, but I have the general idea. And I feel like when I realized that like
Yeah.
making visions and
Yeah.
making it plain, like that's in the Bible, like that's what they're saying, or like how you treat people, like again in the Bible, and you already have that thought of how that should go. And I feel like for most times for people, just because of how we're
Mhm.
created, going back to like being a community and everything, that is what you think. But because you want to be like, but I don't believe in God, it doesn't make sense sometimes because you're already
Yeah.
having those thoughts that are in the Bible and it came from a higher
Yeah.
power. So like why don't you
Yeah. I
believe
mean,
it?
I
But
think it's just
that's a conversation for another day.
really recognizing when it's him, right? Because there could be no other way. What happened?
Yeah. Discernment.
Yes, for sure. That
I said discernment.
it's like some things are seem impossible, but then when the impossible happens, like who else could have done that? There's there's no science behind that. So yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's the one thing people always joke is like that guys believe in their fantasy football teams, but like you don't believe in God, or like you're believing in things you can't see outside of God, but you don't believe in God. And like he's not somebody you could see like physically, but you do see things happening like in your life. And I just do feel like for me personally that especially from 2020 on, like once I really started The 2020 is when I started watching church again, or watching church like more consistently and stuff. I do actually feel like things like, were like pretty okay. Like even in a lot of the struggles and things that I've experienced, I can still sit back and look like, okay, yeah, that was really difficult and really annoying and hard to go through, but like
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for God getting me through that or giving me the tools or like ideas or
Yeah,
something to
yeah. I
like
think
go and
it's
figure out how
with
to overcome it.
well to your point of the fantasy football because like it's interesting. Yeah, because we be at the football
It's fake.
games
That's
hooting and
fake. It's
hollering
fake.
this, but then you can't praise God. Like you can't give. Yeah, it's. I'm not judging. Okay, I'm just saying that it's very interesting. We put all our faith in a football team, and it's
Yeah.
rigged. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm not
yeah,
knocking anybody's thing. Like you could believe what you want, you could do what you want, and I'm not like on one side or the
right.
other. I'm just like pointing out the observations of the world. Because again, I'm not the guru
Yeah,
on all these things. I'm just voicing my opinion and stating what we see and what we joke about, and that is definitely one of them. That people believe in all these fantasy football teams. You believe in like
yeah. Well,
random
I'm just gonna
stuff
pray
that
for
doesn't
them
make any
and
sense.
pray for. Listen, that's all I can do because the goal is salvation. The goal is being reconciled back to to Christ, and all I can do is pray. At this point, maybe in this season, they are hooting and hollering for the football team, and maybe next season something happen. Yeah,
They'll be back. Exactly. And well, we're not even gonna go on that tangent, but I was just like when everybody was
yeah,
boycotting the NFL and then now we're back, like nothing happened. But I don't watch football and I know nothing about football, but that was just a thought that I had as this football season was happening. I was like, were we against this? But one point of what you said about habits that I want to say, I
yeah,
have a very hard time starting and sticking to new habits. And I always make that very clear. Like I have a hard time with doing it. So like even just as these couple weeks have gone past, I'm like, I have been eating horribly. I was like,
yeah,
I need to cook on Sunday or Monday, get the week started and like go from there. But it's so difficult for me to start new habits. I've tried to do habit trackers. I've tried to do apps, like even printing it, putting it down. Like again, I'll make the
yeah.
thoughts of like,
It's
okay, this is what I
well,
need to do.
what I
I just
read,
don't do
right,
it.
is the habits are part of your identity, right? So if we identify ourselves as the gym girly or I'm an athlete, right? We're gonna take our behind to the gym. And if the goal is or the notion of like I just want to lose weight, that's not motivating you to go to the gym. And these are not my words; these are from in the book from James Clear.
Yeah,
But that was like so like mind blowing to me. I'm like, dang, you right, because I'm the first one to say like I'm not an athlete. Like I go to the gym just because I want to be active, but as a athlete in
I
that
agree.
mindset of an athlete, they are going to the gym. They're making that a priority. They're making sure that hey, every day
Yeah,
at 5 a.m. or whatever time, I'm
yeah.
heading to the gym. Non-negotiable.
Yeah. And I was doing pretty well because like I
Mm,
have a Peloton and that's actually something Alex Toussaint, which I love that man. He's so great. He talked about of, like that's why he calls like when he goes on Peloton and he's like doing this thing, he says like, "Oh, good morning athletes," because like you're here, you're showing up, like you're doing workouts, you're in a community of athletes whether you view yourself as one or not, and then
yeah,
once you do, you're going to
yeah.
continue like doing the things. Um and for me
No,
too, what greatly affects like me wanting to do things is this weather. This weather, it hasn't been we had a couple cold days, but it's the gloom. Like I work so much better on sunny days. And today was
yeah.
middle, but I
Listen,
had no
the sun
energy. I
charges us
need sunny
charges
days
us
to do
up.
things.
Like we thrive more or less in the sun, like for sure. Um, I I can't really say that I thrive in the cold. Any cold area or environment is like why for what who I think I take it back to like ancestors because like I feel like they
Yeah.
obviously grew up in the sun, and the way my genetic makeup is, I didn't. my ancestors weren't in the Arctic. Like they weren't in the Arctic at all. So like me, snow, cold, we're
Yeah.
not thriving. It's for me it's resting season. It's for me to take it slow and but then I remember
Yeah.
great bodies are built in the winter and then I go
No, I know. It's really hard because I agree that like this year I've definitely tried to figure out like, okay, summer, spring is definitely even like a little bit of fall because we have like a late fall here. I feel like of that's like not
Mhm.
productive, but like being out more, obviously, being outside, like just taking walks, like
Yeah.
sitting outside versus in the
Yeah,
winter, you
no.
just can't do that. It's just down with the winter. But thank you, Ashley, very much. This was wonderful. Can you let everybody know where they can find you, what you do, how they can contact you, where your
Yes, so
podcast is
you can
at,
find
all
me
of the
on
things
Instagram
that
at
you would like to let
Divine
them know?
Glow Coach. And you can find me on I have a podcast, Your Divine Glow, which is on YouTube at Your Divine Glow Podcast. And those right two are my top two socials right now. I do want to extend into TikTok world, so we'll see. But right now, I'm definitely accepting any clients that are interested in having a mindset coach. I work with professionals who are transitioning from the 9 to 5 space into purpose driven entrepreneurship. So if you are struggling with just self doubt, just being in a state of being stuck and don't know how to really go and make that move into purpose driven entrepreneurship, please DM me. Please email me too. My email address is ashley at yourdivineglow.com. And yeah, I am very much here for you to serve you and to guide you on this journey.
Yes, thank you very much. Everybody, follow her. Tune into our podcast episode and the rest of her episodes because they're very good. People that are
Yeah,
talking
thank
about
you so
similar
much,
things,
Amber,
sharing
for
their
having me
journeys.
on the
So make
platform.
sure you
I
check her out.
love being here, and like you said, our conversation just flows, and I really enjoy speaking with you.
Yes. You as well.